If you think back to when you were a kid, there was probably a time when you would just lie on your back in the grass, you know,
Huh.
and just look up at the sky.
Oh, yeah. Doing absolutely nothing.
Right, doing nothing. It wasn't like a scheduled activity. You weren't trying to optimize your time or anything. You were literally just watching the clouds roll by.
Just existing. But somewhere along the line, as we grow up and our schedules just completely fill up, looking at the sky becomes this, well, it becomes a utilitarian reflex.
Yeah, it's just a way to check, like, do I need to grab an umbrella before making a run for the car?
Exactly. It becomes purely functional, which means we completely lose that relationship with the vastness and the unpredictability that's right above our heads.
And that shift from just simply experiencing the world as it unfolds to constantly trying to manage and predict it,
Mm.
that is the absolute center of what we are looking at today.
It really is the core issue.
So we are taking a deep dive into this really compelling mindfulness text. It's called The Sky of Impermanence, a guide to mindful change. And it's a fascinating book because it bridges these deep esoteric philosophies with very grounded physical practices.
It really does because, I mean, it takes concepts that usually feel super abstract, like impermanence and ego attachment, and translates them into actual physical instructions for you.
Yeah. So our mission for you today is to unpack one specific, highly focused practice from this guide. It's called cloud observation reflection.
A great practice.
It is.
Yeah.
And we're going to explore how the incredibly simple act of looking at the sky can fundamentally rewire, like how your nervous system handles stress
Mm.
and how you view your own identity even.
Yeah, and how you deal with the fear of the unknown, which is huge. The beauty of this specific practice is that it uses the shifting nature of clouds to sort of short circuit our chronic overthinking.
Right.
At a high level, it's designed to increase emotional acceptance. But, from a purely physiological standpoint, the guide asserts that this practice teaches your nervous system a crucial lesson. It teaches you that it is safe to let ambiguous experiences pass through you without, like, grabbing onto them.
Which sounds incredibly liberating.
Mm.
But also, if we're being completely honest, wildly difficult for those of us who spend our days analyzing every little detail of our
Oh,
lives.
it is extremely difficult.
So before we get into all the deep philosophical implications of impermanence, we really need to ground this in the actual physical practice that the text outlines. Like, how do we actually do this?
Well, the guide is very deliberate about the preparation. I mean, this isn't just some thought experiment you do while multitasking or checking your emails.
Right, you can't just squeeze it in.
Exactly. It instructs you to choose an open sky. So a terrace, a park, a balcony, or, even just a wide window works. You sit or lie down comfortably, put your phone completely out of reach, that's key, and then you take exactly 3 slow breaths.
I found that specific detail so fascinating because it doesn't say, like, take a few deep breaths or breathe until you feel calm. It prescribes exactly 3 slow breaths. Why 3?
It's actually a specific physiological trigger. When you take a slow, deliberate breath, especially if you extend the exhale, you're directly stimulating the vagus nerve.
Our vagus nerve, right?
Yeah, that nerve runs from your brainstem down through your abdomen, and it acts as the primary control for the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest mode.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So by prescribing exactly 3 breaths, the text is offering a definitive boundary. It acts as a deliberate circuit breaker for your nervous system. It lowers your cortisol and signals to your brain that the frantic threat detection part of your day is, temporarily suspended.
So you are intentionally turning off the alarm system. I love that. And once you set that physical baseline, the guide moves you right into step 1.
Which is titled Observe Without Analyzing.
Yes. You are instructed to watch the clouds slowly and notice only the raw visual elements. So you're looking for movement, you look for fading edges, changing shapes, the interplay of light and shadow, empty spaces.
And crucially, this is where the text delivers its absolute hardest instruction. It says, do not search for meaning immediately.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that instruction is infuriatingly difficult. I mean, the text includes a section called the silent awareness practice, which tells you to watch the clouds for a few minutes without naming the shapes.
No interpretation at all, just movement.
Right. But the mind violently resists this.
Right.
It actually reminds me of watching a movie. If you try to detach from the plot and just watch the pixels on the screen, just the flashes of light and color, your brain fights you.
Oh, yeah. It wants the narrative.
It desperately wants to know who the villain is,
That narrative drive is just so deeply ingrained in us.
Right. If you look at a cloud, your brain instantly screams, oh, that cloud looks like a dog. Or that one looks like a pirate ship.
It's like a smartphone's autofill feature.
Yes, the autofill feature. The brain is constantly trying to finish the sentence of our visual input. So why is our default human setting to immediately label and categorize absolutely everything rather than just experiencing it as raw data?
Well, it really comes down to how we evolved to survive. Our brains are, at their core, these highly evolved prediction machines. They utilize a process called predictive coding.
Predictive coding. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
So, from an evolutionary standpoint, ambiguity is highly dangerous. If our ancient ancestors saw an ambiguous shape in the bushes, they couldn't afford to sit there and admire the interplay of light and shadow.
Right, they couldn't be like, oh, look at the fading edges on that rustling bush.
Exactly. They had to immediately categorize it. They had to know, is that a tiger or is it just a rock?
So resolving ambiguity was quite literally a matter of life and death.
Precisely. And resolving that ambiguity requires a massive amount of caloric energy. When sensory input is undefined, your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, just lights up. It signals danger.
It's sounding the alarm.
Yeah. But the moment you slap a label on it, like, oh, it's just a rock, the amygdala powers down, the threat is neutralized, and you feel safe again. We are neurobiologically addicted to defining things because definition brings the illusion of safety.
That makes so much sense.
No.
I mean, we feel safe when things have names and boundaries and predictable behaviors. But the problem is, this labeling machine, this autofill feature, it never turns off.
No, it doesn't.
It applies the exact same frantic survival-level energy to a harmless cloud as it does to a rustling bush. And more importantly, it applies it to our complex internal emotions.
And that is the core issue the text is addressing here. When the guide asks you to return to simple observation without interpretation, it's creating a low-stakes training ground for your brain.
Oh, a training ground, I see.
Yeah. By looking at a cloud and actively resisting the urge to name it a dog or a ship, you are intentionally sitting with ambiguity.
It's essentially like microdosing exposure therapy for uncertainty.
That is a perfect way to phrase it. You are intentionally leaving the visual data unresolved. And by doing that, you're actively teaching your neural pathways that you can actually tolerate the unknown without triggering a threat response.
You're proving to your body that you're safe.
Exactly. You are proving to your nervous system that not everything in your environment needs to be defined or controlled for you to be perfectly fine.
Which naturally pivots us to the core of what these clouds actually represent.
Yeah.
Because the goal of this book isn't to just make us better at looking at the literal sky, obviously.
Right, that would be a bit underwhelming.
Yeah. We are using the physical sky as a mirror for our internal emotional landscape.
And that is exactly where step 2 of the guide takes us. It's titled Notice Impermanence.
Right. So as the clouds change, the reader is prompted to gently reflect on a few simple truths. The guide offers this line that says, no shape stays forever. And then it delivers a line that completely stopped me in my tracks.
Which one?
It says, no cloud fights to remain the same.
Oh man, it's such a striking image, isn't it?
It really is. Because think about the absurdity of a cloud actively resisting the wind. Like, imagine a cloud tensing up, trying with all its might to hold its shape as a perfectly round cotton ball, while a jet stream rips right through it. It's ridiculous.
It is completely ridiculous for a cloud, yet it is the exact operating system of the human mind.
Oh, sure.
And this brings us to what the text calls the deeper insight. The guide states that human beings experience chronic suffering because we expect permanence from temporary experiences.
We absolutely do. We demand that the good times last forever. And when things get dark, we are absolutely convinced the bad times will never, ever end.
We constantly want to freeze reality. But as the text points out, nature constantly provides us with evidence that transformation is the baseline of reality. It's not the exception.
It's the rule.
Right. The guide lists these undeniable physical truths to ground the reader. It says seasons change, skies shift, rivers carve new paths, leaves fall, clouds dissolve. We accept all of this in nature, but we vigorously fight it in ourselves.
Okay, here's where I have to pause. I want to push back on the text a little bit on behalf of anyone listening right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because the guide draws a direct line from this natural transformation to our mental well-being, stating, holding too tightly creates emotional exhaustion. And it reminds us that, even storms eventually move. But I want to challenge the practicality of this.
Sure. How so?
Well, it is very easy to read a beautifully written poetic book about clouds while sipping tea on a Sunday and say, yes, I will flow like a river, I will let go.
Right.
But when you are in the middle of a genuine crisis, Say you are going through a brutal divorce, or you just lost your job, or you're facing a really frightening health diagnosis. Looking at a cloud feels dangerously close to toxic positivity.
I can see how it would feel that way.
Right. It almost feels like dissociation. Like, if my life is literally falling apart, how is trusting movement not just sticking my head in the sand and ignoring the reality of the damage?
That is probably the most important critique you can level at any mindfulness practice. And it's a distinction the text actually anticipates. Mindfulness is so often misconstrued as passivity, but that is not what the guide is advocating at all.
Okay, so how does it differentiate?
Well, to use your examples, a divorce, a health crisis, bankruptcy. The text is not denying the reality of those events. A storm is real. A storm has lightning, it has thunder, and it can literally rip the roof right off your house.
Right. It's not telling you to go stand out in the rain and pretend it's a sunny day.
Exactly. Dissociation is pretending the storm isn't happening. What the text is asking you to examine is the actual source of your exhaustion. Yes, dealing with a divorce or a health crisis requires practical logistical energy, but the profound, bone-deep emotional exhaustion doesn't just come from the logistics.
Where does it come from then?
The exhaustion comes from the cognitive dissonance of wanting reality to be different than it currently is. It comes from your refusal to flow with the fact that in this very moment, your life is stormy.
Oh, wow. So we expend massive amounts of our daily energy capital basically shouting at the sky to stop raining.
Yeah.
Or desperately trying to hold our life in the exact shape it was before the storm hit.
Yes. We are that absurd cloud fighting the wind to maintain our shape, and the cognitive load of that resistance is what actually breaks us.
That makes a lot of sense.
So when the guide asks us to remember that even storms eventually move, it's not telling you to ignore the lightning. It is asking you to trust in the mechanism of impermanence.
It's reminding you that it won't last forever.
Exactly. It's reminding you that your current pain, no matter how heavy, dense, or terrifying, is subject to the same laws of physics and nature as the weather. It's a temporary atmospheric condition. It will shift, it will dissolve, and it will reform.
That reframing completely changes the objective. Because the goal isn't to magically make the storm disappear faster. The goal is to stop wearing yourself out trying to fight the wind, so you actually have the energy left to rebuild once the storm passes.
Precisely. You conserve your energy by accepting the reality of the weather, which leads us into the deeply interrogative part of the guide the reflection question.
Yes, this is where the text moves from, like, philosophical observation into active psychological dismantling. Because once you understand that expecting permanence causes your suffering, the guide provides a toolkit of questions to ask yourself while you watch these clouds.
And these questions, they really do not let you hide.
They don't. They are designed to bypass all your defense mechanisms. When I was reading through them, one in particular just stopped me. It asks, what am I trying to hold on to that is already changing?
That's a heavy one.
It is. Think about how that applies to, say, a shifting friendship or an industry that is evolving past your current skill set. We often feel the shift happening, but we white-knuckle our grip on the past version of the relationship or the job.
We grip it because releasing it forces us into that terrifying ambiguity we discussed earlier.
Right, the threat response.
Yeah.
It also asks, which emotion feels permanent but may only be passing through? And am I observing my thoughts or becoming them?
That last question, observing versus becoming, is basically the cornerstone of cognitive diffusion.
Cognitive diffusion.
Yeah, it's the realization that you are not your anxiety. You are the vessel experiencing the anxiety. But if we connect all these questions to the broader narrative of the text, there is one specific recurring theme that I think is actually the most challenging part of this entire deep dive.
Okay, what theme is that?
The theme of identity. The guide asks a piercing question. It says, what identity am I slowly outgrowing? And later it follows up with, what has changed in me that I have not fully acknowledged?
Oh, identity is so tricky.
It is. We talk a lot in modern culture about letting go of negative emotions, like anger, bitterness, or sadness. But we rarely talk about the sheer terror of outgrowing an identity we have built our entire lives around.
That is a fascinating angle.
Yeah.
Because it's not always a negative identity. Sometimes we outgrow things we were really, really proud of.
Exactly. Think about someone whose entire sense of self is tied up in being the fixer of their family. They are the crisis manager. Their entire value is derived from putting out fires.
Right. But what happens when the family heals or sets boundaries and there are suddenly no more fires to put out?
The crisis manager doesn't know who they are in peacetime. They feel completely useless.
Wow.
Or consider someone whose identity is completely wrapped up in corporate hustle culture. If they lose that job or realize it's destroying their health, they don't just lose an income. They lose the entire architecture of their ego.
That's terrifying.
These are identities we construct to navigate the world safely. We attach our permanent, unchanging sense of self to highly temporary conditions.
We think that identity is a solid granite mountain. But this book argues it was really just a cloud formation that we got incredibly used to seeing in the mirror every single day.
And when that identity starts to dissolve, when the wind blows and the shape actually changes, it feels like death. It feels terrifying because we are looking directly into the void of the unknown.
But the text asks a really vital question here. It says, what if uncertainty is part of transformation?
Yes.
The guide suggests that the terror of losing yourself isn't a sign that something has gone terribly wrong. The uncertainty is literally the required atmospheric condition for transformation to occur.
It's the only way growth happens. The caterpillar has to dissolve completely in the chrysalis before it becomes the butterfly. It's a messy, totally unrecognizable transition.
So how do we actually process that dissolution without completely panicking? Because it's a lot. Thankfully, the guide gives us a very practical way to sort of land the plane with its closing reflection sentence stems.
Yes, these are great. It forces you to take all this high-level philosophy and apply it directly to your Tuesday afternoon.
It demands immediate personal application. It asks you to complete these two sentences. The first is, like clouds, I am learning that. And the second is, what is passing through my life right now is...
Such simple prompts, but so effective.
I actually sat on my balcony and tried this, and the psychological relief is almost instant. Because when you fill in that blank saying out loud, what is passing through my life right now is this overwhelming imposter syndrome about my new promotion. You instantly alter your relationship with the feeling.
You've achieved cognitive distance.
Exactly. It's no longer a permanent resident occupying your brain. It is a temporary visitor moving through your airspace. It has a beginning, a middle, and most importantly, it has an expiration date.
By naming it as a passing element, you strip it of its perceived permanence. And this really brings us to the ultimate thesis of the source material, the final insight of the chapter.
Yes, the author crystallizes the entire practice into one stunning observation.
The phrasing here is just beautiful.
It really is. The text states, clouds do not fear becoming unrecognizable. They trust movement.
They trust movement. I mean, think about how radically different human life would be if we adopted that.
We spend so much of our lives terrified of becoming unrecognizable. We fear aging because our physical shape changes.
We fear changing our minds on deep-seated beliefs because we worry we won't recognize our own moral compass anymore. We fear starting over in a new career or a new city because we are terrified of losing our defined, comfortable shape.
We fight the wind.
We do. But the text concludes with this incredibly powerful thought. It says, perhaps true healing begins when we realize we were never meant to stay the same forever.
We were never meant to stay the same forever. If you really let that sink into your bones, it takes an unbelievable amount of pressure off your shoulders.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't have to have it all figured out, and you certainly don't have to vigorously defend the person you were 10 years ago or, even 10 minutes ago. You are allowed to shift, to dissolve, and to reform.
It's natural.
And what makes this book so effective is that it doesn't just leave you staring at the sky, lost in abstract thought. It physically grounds this philosophy into your body. We don't have time to fully dive into it today, but I have to mention that the very next chapter in the book is titled 15, Slow Motion Walking.
That transition from the sky down to the earth is just brilliant.
It really is. It proves that this mindful intentionality, this deep awareness of pacing, of transition, of letting things pass, it isn't just a mental exercise. It can be carried from the clouds down into our very footsteps as we move through our busy days.
It takes the insight of the sky and roots it directly into your physical reality.
So let's synthesize all of this into a few core takeaways that you can use right now. The next time you feel completely stuck or your brain is running 1,000,000 miles an hour trying to label and control every single variable in your life, remember to literally look up.
Just look up.
Find a window or step outside. Take those 3 slow breaths to engage your vagus nerve and calm you.